All right, everybody, welcome back to the Aptitude Outdoors podcast. Thanks for tuning back in. Now, if you watched a few episodes ago, I was coming from New Orleans, was getting ready to hop on an airplane. I talked about traveling with some fly fishing gear.
This is the Aptitude Outdoors podcast, where we interview conservationists, hunters, anglers, and outdoorsmen and women to bring you the greatest stories, information, and advice from the best in the world.
And it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I said I might make a video about it, and I got home this morning, decided, why not? I've never made anything like this, really, so decided I'd give it a shot. It was pretty painless to travel with this fly fishing gear, especially. I was mostly concerned about the hooks and the forceps, which seemed to be the only things that could have been sharp and pointy that they confiscated, so I didn't bring any of the flies that I've got from traveling around the country or local shops that are, they can be, $2 to $6 to $8 a piece. I didn't bring any of those. So we'll start there. I went on Amazon and got essentially the cheapest box of flies I could get. Came in this little package. I think it's got about 50 flies in it or something like that. And it was not super expensive, so I would rather lose $25 worth of little flies that I don't really care about than a bunch of specialty flies that could range, anywhere from $100 to a few $100, depending on how many I have right now. I don't really keep track, to be honest. But yeah, they worked surprisingly well. I caught a ton of bluegill on some of these smaller, little tiny flies that float on top of the water. I don't know how well you can see that, but they're basically the floating flies. They did go under a little bit once they got super wet, which actually kind of helped a little bit. And they were easier to cast than some of the heavier flies that are having here, like the streamers. They were a little tougher to cast on the smaller 5-weight rod. But I will say that fighting the fish on that rod with these little flies was a heck of a time. I wasn't catching anything to write home about, but I was catching fish, which when you're traveling for work and you have access to public parks is awesome in and of itself. And then I threw in these cheap forceps that I found online. I think they were like $2. They worked. I honestly didn't even use them because bluegill, you just pull right off with your hand. Very simple. Same. I caught a few little tiny bass as well. So I guess I really didn't even need those, but TSA did not confiscate them or even ask me to take them out of the bag, which is a huge bonus. Other than that, I brought this. We'll get to that in a second. I brought this fly pack that I bought on Amazon too. It's relatively inexpensive. Had just enough room for some of the basic stuff. The forceps, the tippet, some extra leader line, and I have my little nippers on there. I use those quite a bit. Actually, it's probably the most common thing that I used out there because I tried so many different flies. In the pack, I had some extra sizes of leader in case I broke something off or got stuck in a tree, which with me is a very high probability. And as I mentioned, I brought some varying sizes of tippet that I've just collected from my very short time in fly fishing. And that was all I brought. Super simple setup, which is actually kind of nice because it limits what you are able to do, which can get overwhelming if you're bringing everything you own with you every time you fish. It was nice to just go to a pond, cast around, hope I caught something. I wasn't expecting to catch anything astounding. I just wanted to catch fishing because I love to fish. And that's why I brought the stuff with me. I brought 2 reels, but I really only used my reel with floating line on it because I was casting such super light flies. And it was totally fine. This is actually one I pulled off of a combo that I have. It's a relatively, probably mid-range reel, TFO NXT Black Label, probably higher low end mid reel. It worked great. It stored the line perfectly, I'll tell you what. And I opted not to buy the $12 bag. I put it in this Crown Royal bag that I had laying around. So that saved me quite a bit of money. They didn't bother with that either at TSA. Who knew? And that reel didn't get beat up at all. It was totally fine in my carry-on bag. No problems whatsoever. And then the main part that I was worried about in this whole endeavor was the fly rod. The fly rod I have now, part of that combo I just talked about, is 4 pieces, and it just doesn't fit in a carry-on. I saw a guy in the airport with a carry-on with a tube with his fly fishing equipment in it, and nobody said anything, and he was on my flight, so I'm guessing it's not that big of a deal. But I don't know. For me, flying is always a huge pain in the ass. They always check my bag. Always. Mostly because of the camera equipment, though, to be fair, because I always have to bring camera equipment with me everywhere I go for my job and this stuff. So I did a lot of looking around, and they make many rods that you can get that are for traveling. And many of them are insanely expensive, which if that's your thing, go for it. I don't have anything against you. I settled on this. Fell off my desk here. What is this thing? Shows you how much I care. Valiant Eagle Passage Cast King. It was, I believe, $50 that I got directly on Amazon. Breaks down into 6 pieces. And the best thing about this damn thing is it comes in a plastic hard, semi-hard tube. For me, that's wonderful because I literally just knocked it off my desk while recording this. And I had no problems. It kept everything safe in my bag. It fit in my carry-on backpack. And it would definitely fit in a roller carry-on. And I have nothing to complain about. It caught fish. I'm a huge fanatic for handmade, high-quality leather and canvas products. In my opinion, they last longer, hold up better to the abuses of travel, and honestly, they just look really cool. That's why I use Badger Claw Outfitters. They've been making handcrafted products for hunting, camping, and travel since 2011, and that's right up my alley. Best part is they're made right here in the USA and are guaranteed for life. They've got everything from gun leather, belts, custom knife sheaths, wallets, duffel bags, leather and canvas pouches, everyday carry items, and more. Badger Claw Outfitters, made in the USA, built for the wild. This is a 5-weight and moderately fast, medium power. I don't really care about that much, honestly. I am not experienced enough to really know what I need for that at this point. But the important parts are it fit in a backpack, and they made other ones that probably work just as well, because judging by the pictures off of Amazon, and I'm no marketing wizard or production wizard, but it's weird how all the pictures of all the rods are the same thing. They all look exactly the same. So I'm guessing they're all coming from the same company, and they're just charging different because of their marketing. So do I recommend this rod? Only in because it's small, yes, but there were cheaper ones, but they didn't ship fast enough to be able to get here, so that's why I went with this one. $50 is not a bad deal for a rod, considering most fly rods are in the hundreds of dollars just for the rod themselves. And it was so fun fighting these little tiny bluegill and bass on this rod. It felt like I was fighting a huge bass just because it's such a lightweight rod. I have another 5-weight rod that I got my first rod with a combo, and I've caught a few fish on that. And this feels a little bit lighter than that other 5-weight. It's just not as stiff. So it will vary, but I had a blast. I had so much fun catching them. And this setup right here fit in my carry-on bag with all of my clothing, with all of the equipment that I need to bring to film stuff for my job. So that's the only thing that took up the most space was this rod and case holder. And if you were brave, you could just shove the rod in there and maybe wrap it up or something, or I don't know. I was not that brave because I'm pretty hard on my stuff, and the airplane attendants usually beat the shit out of your stuff as well. So I wouldn't recommend that, but you could throw this in your bag and save even more space, but rods aren't that sturdy. So other than that, I brought, because I had to dress semi-professionally for work, I brought a pair of super lightweight pants I think I got at Costco, whatever they had on sale, your typical long hiking style pants. I threw one of my fishing shirts that I have with the hood on it because it's a little hotter in New Orleans and a little bit more sunshine than here in Ohio when I was down there. So got the long sleeve stuff. I threw on a hat. I always wear a hat when I travel just because it's keeps everything out of my face, which is great. And that was it. That was all I had. So together I probably added an extra, 2 pounds to my luggage, if that. I mean, this flies are light. Everything's light. The chest pack weighs nothing. The rod and reel probably added, maybe 1.5 pounds. So not much going on. Really simple. Not a single hassle at TSA. Now, I have read online that if you are going to take bigger flies, the larger the hooks, those larger hook sizes, they might have a problem with that. So that's on you. But again, I was willing to lose these at the airport. That's why I bought the cheapest ones that I could find on Amazon. So that way, if they confiscated them, I would just figure it out. I'd go down there and find a fly shop or whatever, which I did. I did try. I do like to support local fly shops, but I really couldn't find any in New Orleans proper. So I just was glad I brought these, and I'm glad they didn't get taken. And it was a blast. I just went out after work a few days, tooled around, caught fish. Made everything, as I talked about in the last podcast, melt away. I didn't worry about it. I wasn't stressed about it. And it just made me happy because that's what I like to do. And the last thing that I brought, which I really didn't have, I don't really ever have high expectations for books because they're all just different in what they are. My wife got some gift cards for a Barnes & Noble's for her birthday or I think it was Christmas. One of them. She had all these gift cards for Barnes & Noble. So I went with her one day. I normally don't go to big chain bookstores because they never have the books I'm looking for because I like weird old fishing books and hunting books, which I've talked about in detail in many other podcasts. So I was looking in their travel section of Barnes & Noble's, and they had 3 fishing books, and I found this little one called Fly Fishing. It's by Christopher Schaberg. And it's the most basic cover ever. It's light blue. It looks like a handwritten phrase that says fly fishing on the front, and that's it. It says a signature, and it says practices. And I didn't know what to expect. I didn't even look at the book. I didn't even read the back. I just saw it, and I was like, I will read that. Very, very awesome book. I actually finished it on the airplane on the way down. It was so short. But it's basically one long stream of consciousness about this man's life of fly fishing. And it's great. I loved his story. And it was a little philosophical, which I love. And he just talked about how it's changed in his lifetime. And it's not focusing on trophy fish and flying around the country to catch the biggest stuff you can. He was doing in this book exactly what I was doing, which was fishing where he was at, screwing around, figuring out what he could catch and what flies he had that would catch. He doesn't tie flies. Well, he does a little bit, I guess. And the great part about this was purely by chance is there was a whole section of this book where he talked about fly fishing in New Orleans because he moved there for a job. And some of the places that are in this book is where I was fishing, which is great. It was the coolest thing ever. And I loved that chance happened. So I would recommend this book, even if you're not a big reader. It is, I believe it's 100 pages cover to cover if you skip all the contents and stuff. So it's a little less than 100 pages. And it's a small book in and of itself. It's the size of my hand. And I blew through it. So it was an amazing book, and I love his perspective because it's similar to my perspective of I just want to go out and catch fish. Do I love catching big fish? You bet your ass I love catching big fish. It's great. It's fun. Mostly because it's fun and they're more challenging that way. But I caught 10 bluegill back to back and I absolutely loved it. So I hope you got something out of this. If you really are interested in what I have, you can message me on Instagram or something. And I'll send you a link, I guess. But it really does not matter. None of these are name brand anything as far as I know. They're just stuff that I've acquired last minute trying to figure out what I'm doing. Totally worth it. It was probably $110 worth of crap total. And I will take this everywhere I go from now on, whether I'm driving or whatever, flying. This will be a staple of anything I go. I will find a ditch or something. And this is something that I don't have a release date, but I made a video like this with Chester Moore and my friend Seth Geib when we were down in Oklahoma. We'll have a video coming out about this, a little more professional than me rambling on this podcast. And it's about this same topic. So finding this book, doing it myself, and coming up with that ethic all at the same time by chance was pretty cool. So I would highly encourage you, and it doesn't have to be fly fishing. It doesn't have to be whatever. You can get a collapsible rod if you like fishing on spin. I've just had bad luck fishing on spinning tackle. That's the only reason I went down this path. And now I really, really love fly fishing. So I'm that guy. Sorry, but I like to change my opinions as I learn new information. Anyway, thank you guys for listening. I will be back very soon with another episode. If you can, help me out. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. We very much so appreciate that. And also, if you can leave this podcast a rating and review on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you listen that allows that, that would be very great for me as well. And I'll see you guys soon.